Before we get started, I wanted to share something a bit lighthearted because we had some serious, heavy conversations today. But Dr. Joanne planted a earworm in my ear, so I want to put it in your ear. It may come up again as we go through the roundtable, but the next time you find yourself at such a conference as this, she was saying that every time someone said phenomenology today, she thought of the Muppets and the phenomenon. She heard phenomenon. Yeah. So if someone in this illustrious panel says phenomenology, we're all gonna go phenomenon. Okay. Just to keep it light.
Isn't the response to phenomenon?
Yeah.
So we all gotta go do.
You do you. Yeah. Sue's in charge. So all over. So the last part of our day, which has been a fantastic day of great conversations and community and hospitality, excellent day today, and thank you all for your contributions. Finally, we have our roundtable discussion, the impossible possibilities of theology, religion, and AI. On our panel, we have Jack Caputo. I don't think needs any more introduction. But he has been just amazing over this past couple of days. We have the Reverend Dr. Joanne Mercer, who is the Provost of Queen's College here. We have Dr. Barry Taylor, who's with us from GCAS.
And we have 2 berries here today.
Yeah, 2 berries. Yeah. You want to come up and do this? I mean, this is such a rare time to have 2 berries in the same room that maybe Barry Stevenson should be on the panel as well. No.
I'll just speak for the berries.
Yeah. Okay. And finally, we have Dr. Michelle Rebidoux.
Oh, there's 2 Michelles as well.
That's not as unusual. I'm sure you both have experienced lots of other Michelles at things, but this is quite unique for berries.
Isn't a berry, isn't that a disease?
Very. Dangerously close, yes. Yes. So I think we're almost right back on schedule from our original schedule. So my plan is to maybe for an hour have a conversation. I don't have a lot of questions, really just one that will get us going. And then maybe we can take some questions from people gathered here or from the people online. So I wanted to start off really with a question for Jack. And this flows out of something that you said last night in your talk, when we talked about it's kind of your evaluation of where we are right now with digital technology, and as we move further into artificial intelligence technology. You made the statement that you probably don't think it was worth it. So I want to say, are you maybe jumping the gun there a little bit? And can you even make those kinds of statements yet?
No.
As we're in motion. So
no.
Maybe that's our starting point.
No, it's I come from the United States, and I always used to say, if this thing's getting worse down here, I'm going to come to Canada. Now Canada's starting to look like and I think that Trumpism has been fed, nourished, and energized by the misuse of social media, and it is on the verge of wrecking our democracy. And we'll see if it does in the next 18 months or so. And someone said to me, I'm going to invent something that is going to produce it's going to have a lot of benefits, but it's going to produce widespread distrust of science. It's going to undermine our confidence that people are speaking the truth. It will undermine confidence in public institutions and become profoundly polarizing. But it'll have a lot of benefits, really a lot of benefits. Would you buy that? Would you go for that? And my answer would be no. Not worth it. And so far, and I would be complicit in this problem too, because I was a postmodern theorist, like the Leotard in particular, who was interested in information theory, who was the one who coined the word postmodern in its philosophical sense anyway. Our whole idea was that communication technologies were going to be able to break the grip of totalitarian regimes by spreading the word, getting the truth into systems that exclude and repress the truth. What we didn't see was that it was going to do exactly the opposite. And so, as of right now, I would be happy to get rid of it all and go back to my typewriter. And one other advantage of my using a typewriter is that my articles and books were shorter. That's what I do.
Okay. Anybody want to respond to that or take that up?
Well, Paul Virilio made this comment that the invention of the ship was the invention of the shipwreck. And every technology.
Eric, can you speak up?
Oh, I'm sorry. Paul Virilio
Yep.
said that the invention of the ship was the invention of the shipwreck. And that it essentially, with any and every technology, accidents will happen. And I've been thinking quite a lot about this, quite simply because of similar things to Jack in terms of the sort of dismay and disappointment. But I think, so I've been thinking a lot about the accident of technology, the accident of digitality. And there are two kinds of accidents. And I think that perhaps ties into this theme of radical impossibility. I think there are possibilities and impossibilities for theology and religion within the horizon of AI and digitality. The things that Jack just mentioned, that's the tragic accident. That's those are the accidents that cause unrest and disquiet. And I think that's got a lot of attention, and that has a lot of energy in certain religious circles with regard to sort of panic, and even within culture about, the robots are going to take over and we're going to, whatever, we're going to die, or whatever that particular thing is. I'm also interested in the happy accident, because there are happy accidents, and I think alongside and whether they, whether one outweighs the other, I don't know. But I think what's in one of the happy accidents, and it's not exclusively to AI, but it's definitely, I think, come to fruition in the realm of digitality, is a kind of, I wouldn't call it metaphysics, and I wouldn't call it a return to God, but I would call it some kind of space where a horizon has opened up for conversations about things long consigned to the dustbin around issues of whether it's faith, belief, religion, or spirituality. So on one level, there are possibilities there. The impossibility is, I think, that conversation. So I think for religion and for theology, the impossibility of that open space is that it requires a whole new way of looking at, talking, and practicing whatever it is about this open space that's there. But I do think that the accidental fallout, who knew that access to all the world's information was going to turn us all into idiots? You know what I mean? The idiocracy would become the sort of goal of having access to everything. And the rise of the sort of acceleration, because arguably, if you sort of follow McLuhan, you know, the things that emerged out of text culture, you know, Protestantism, individualism, and all that, they've kind of hyperspaced into this new world of kind of mad populism and nationalism and xenophobia and racism and bigotry and so many things that have just been exacerbated. So accidents will happen. Fire keeps you warm, but it can also scorch, you know, burn. So it's nothing new, but we never consider the accidents. So the Titanic, I go to Belfast a lot, they always say it was fine when it left here. And, you know,
There's somebody online.
Oh, so do you want me to answer? Sure, if you
Oh,
can do
yes.
that, all that'd be great.
Yeah, and I think I'm listening to too many things today. Thinking in terms of even evolution, like how much of the chaos of this time is the result of our social media and our digitality, or how much did the chaos for a time create those tools that enabled those things? I'm not sure if it's either or chicken egg kind of thing, right? That because postmodern age, they tried to describe those kinds of things, the breakdown of community and distrust of institution and all those things. Certainly before social media took to the level that it is now. Do we create the tools we need to propagate the hatred and division that is within our community, whether it's, you know, the writing of texts, you know, in terms of criticism or creating of various social media tools? And I think when it goes back to what you said around too, that is it a tool or is it a relationship, right? I'm still old enough to think of it as a tool. And I feel I have accountability in terms of how I use that tool. I also know the panic that goes into my heart when I lose my tool. And I don't know, like, what are you doing? Okay, I can't check, you know. So yeah, but I think it's really, yeah, I'm not sure I'm as pessimistic as, you know, but I am deeply concerned about the direction. But I'm not sure if which one's the person is Mr. Hart.
I'd like to go back to your typewriter comment. Well, I wouldn't have done my PhD if I had to do it on a typewriter, because I do like to use a computer as a word processor, but often not much more than that, although I have to answer emails, of course. But the thing is, I'm interested in, and now this is going to, I think, well, it'll, you know, it's like really a different direction, but it's also going to sound really, really bizarre in a probably an academic context. But I'm really interested in the idea of yogic technology. And that is to say, every time we use the word technology, we're always thinking of the exteriorization of our desires to achieve projects. And we make these tools that are outside of us to get these goals and whatnot. But technology might also be a kind of inner psychokinetic science, where, like in the yogic tradition, there are books of like science books, yoga science, how to. And, you know, you read in the New Testament, Jesus walks on water, he heals people, you know, he does various miracles. In India, all the yogis can do that. That's called siddhis. Those are yogic powers that people can develop when they practice yogic science. That's a form of technology. It's a form of technology which is based on a kind of an exploration into the nature of consciousness and the way consciousness is capable of reaching out and touching the. See, the words would be different in Sanskrit, right? But the reaching out and touching the reality that is in nature and being able to move it directly. And anybody who has developed yogic powers is capable of psychokinesis. That's a science. That's technology. And I'm more interested, although there's, of course, all kinds of dangers, and, you know, all the yogis will tell you there's all kinds of dangers associated with that as well. But I'm more interested in that kind of technology only because it's somehow, I mean, it could be used for good and bad purposes too, but it's somehow more, it's still rooted in the human, right? It's not a tool outside of us.
Well, I think, sorry, let me jump in, but I think we have to remember, or I think it's worth remembering, that human beings have always been techno beings. Since fire, technology defines what it means to be. We make stuff, we live with stuff, we build, we cut, we carve, we paint, we draw. So technology it's gone hand in hand with the march of humanity since the invention of fire. So on one level, the problem isn't technology. The problem or the possibility or the impossibility is the current overarching communication technology, which has reframed and reshaped the way we interact and communicate and extend ourselves. And for me, the question is, again, Jack's point, it'd be great if it hadn't happened, but it has happened. So now what? And how then are we human?
I'm in the class. I'm just going to reference the issues on the live.
Fair enough. So how are we human and humane in this very different scenario? And I feel very strongly that the impact of digitality has had a transformative effect on whatever we understand consciousness to be, whatever our particular persuasion is. We are in a different headspace and life space because of technology, and it's like we butted up again. I remember reading in that I'm no pragmatist, but I like Richard Rorty's contingency, irony, and solidarity, and he talks about how in the 16th century the mechanical language of the one era was not enough to communicate with the emerging world that was coming. And I think that's where we are. And we keep trying to impose this whole, which is why I'm sort of interested in your take on the theopoetic as something very different than traditional theopoetics. And I also think that the material to work with has already been given to us within the horizon of digitality, but it's so other to our contemporary and traditional understandings of how all this stuff works that we're not sure what to do with it, because we keep trying to apply our traditional perspectives and language onto this thing. And I don't think it works. I think it bounces off. It's like a dome over it in regards to that. And yet within that horizon, to put it in deeply philosophical terms, shit is happening.
Yeah, and I think today and maybe last night too, but certainly today, we talk a lot about consciousness. What is consciousness? But I think there's a more important question underneath that. You just mentioned it, and that was what does it mean to be human? And I said to someone earlier, I think it was at the end of John's talk, that so many of the questions that we're asking about AI technology that Christian theology certainly has struggled with, and maybe all the Abrahamic faiths, is what does it mean to be created in the image of God? And we're using a lot of the same language to try to get at what that means. Is someone who's rational, is it creativity? Like what is it? And we don't really have a really good answer. And I think you're right about language, right? Like we're using old language to try to tackle the new emerging issue.
I mean, I don't know if they're created in the image of God. Fair enough. Maybe we are. I mean, I don't know. I also don't know if we're a product of the Big Bang. I don't know, on some sense. I can only sort of have preferential opinions about that. What I do know is I'm alive in St. John's in this magical, sort of weirdly or strangely mystical ether of the web world, you know, and it's challenging pretty much everything that our world has been built on in the last at least 50 or 60 years, but more than that. But you know, at least the sort of the phone shift and stuff like that, without sourced out memory. I mean, I 0207 289 3124. My friend Ian moved to London in Maida Vale in 1974, and that was his phone number. The only phone number I know. Literally the only phone number I can remember.
Because you don't have to.
Because I don't have to, because I've outsourced all of that information. And that's not just an arbitrary thing. I think that's an important consideration in what's happening with how we're conceiving.
Yeah, I didn't mean to leave it pessimistic. But my whole thing is, of the three great
you're the hope guy.
charity, my great thing is hope.
You're the whole guy.
Hope against hope. But to use a baseball analogy, I would say, when I would say about the great crisis that we're entering, and it was about a complete and utter transformation of our self-understanding of the world. What I envision is a new version of the Mysterium Tremendum at Fascinating, which will be cosmic in scope and post-theistic and post-anthropocentric. And so I don't think that all of this AI in principle spells trouble for religion. I think actually it should move us on past where we've been and shatter the graven images of the past and open up a whole new mysterious world. And I think this thing, Philip, where I can't ever find where he actually said it. That people always put Philip, we always say knowledge is an island, and as the island of knowledge grows bigger, the shoreline of ignorance grows longer. And so I think there will always be this mystery. I mean, even what we're talking about, this universe we're talking about, is only 5 or 6% of visible universe of the universe. The visible part is only 5 or 6%. So a good 94% of the universe is totally unknown to us. So I think the mystery is shifting away from traditional religion into some radically new form, which I embrace and welcome. But to use a baseball analogy, I would say let's think of this, the great moment of crisis and transition, as a baseball game. And we're in the first inning of the big game. And we're 10 runs behind. I mean, we're getting creamed by the opposition in this great transition. It's turning out so far. It's on its way to being a disaster. But it's not over yet. And the future, we are by we are beings of hope, right? And hope is really hope when it's hopeless. I mean, hope is just a good bet when the prospects look good, but genuine hope is hope when it's. So I didn't mean to suggest that I'm in despair. I meant to say I am scared and deeply concerned that this thing is going southwards. But I haven't given up.
I have a question. Do you think that we're more hesitant, resistant to the notion of a post-anthro, so which word you use, anthropocentric world than a post-theist? Like we're very willing to throw away our notions of God as long as I'm still a focus.
Yeah, the polls seem to show that, yes.
Yeah,
We're instead of theism, belief in God, religious affiliations, every time we poll, at least Americans, they're starting to look like Europeans now. The nuns are the NONES nuns on the rise, and the NUNS nuns are disappearing. But our anthropocentric is alive and well.
and is that really the sum of the crap of shit that's going down? Is that we're so focused on the belief that we have the power, whether it's through AI or something else, to make this all better within ourselves. We can save ourselves. We can say, don't we really care about the planet? Let's go to another planet, or we'll just, upload ourselves into the singularity, or what, like somehow.
If you're rich in it.
If you're rich in them, yeah.
Yeah.
So we all need to get rich. We all need to have influence so that we don't have to care about anything else. So I can be pessimistic.
But it's ironic that science is continually reminding us of just how insignificant.
Yeah.
Like when you spoke about the Mysterium Tremendum, most recently, what has really fascinated us and reminded us of wonder again is the James Webb Telescope, which shows us parts of the universe that we had seen before, not in such clarity. But it keeps reminding us of just how insignificant we are, but yet we double down on this unwillingness to let go of that anthropological.
You might be insecure. You know what I mean? But that's like it doesn't matter if your significance is on the sign. I wish you had another good.
Yeah, and that's it, that prosaic.
Yeah.
I think if religion is going to survive, and I don't know if it's even worth surviving. I think it's done so much damage to itself. So on the internet, it's probably not worth saving. But if it is, it would be something like Sagan. It would have the voice in the tonality of Carl Sagan in that famous Pale Dot. Well,
Okay, so in the header there, the black and white stuff is going.
Yeah, 9 people will need to be muted.
Yeah, please mute yourself if you're on mic.
Put your hand up if you want to say something.
Or you finish your thought.
Yeah, so it'd be such a mystery. Something like religion is a sort of antecedent state to some post-religious, post-theistic, and post-anthropocentric world that we're heading for one way or the other.
This is a follow-up to what you were just saying. How do you envision post-religion? How do you differentiate that between just yet another form of religion? Yet another form of religion.
Well, maybe it'll be another form of religion. I mean, the religion to come in the religion to come more important than
To come is the most important part.
yeah, I mean, the word religion, I mean, the people with religious studies faculty understand that's a historical construction of modernity. It's got all post-colonial labor, baggage attached to it, and all that. But forget about that. It's the only word we've got. What I think religion really is, I don't like to make a distinction between religion and what is going on in religion, the event that's going on in religion. What I think the event that is going on in religion is would survive all the institutional structures which are sort of puny compared to what's really going on in religion, which is some sense of the mystery of the things and the mystery that we all are, and approaches it with some sense of the sacred. And I think the most effective vehicle for discussing that is to get rid of the distinction between natural and supernatural, which does more harm than good. or general revelation, special, which is worse. And distinguish between the prosaic and the poetic. Because I think that what we call the human heart, which is non-conceptual, it's our pre-conceptual bond, it's the world, is a poetic energy which precedes the prose. And the prose is kind of the clarification of a poetic vision. And but the poetic vision is a creative attempt to give word and image and a form of life to this mystery. So and I think that's there, and I think that in any possible future universe that we could imagine, there would be this poetry forming on the edge of knowledge, like this, the shoreline around the island of knowledge. That edge of the passage to the limits, we were talking about the passage to the limits yesterday. It's on that edge that our poetic powers are evoked. And they precede conceptual knowledge. And I take that to be an irreducible structure. And the historical constructions called Christianity or Islam or Judaism or Hinduism, those things are transients. That's why I like that thing that Michel de Certeau said about the empty tomb. It's Mary Magdalene goes to the tomb and the angel says, he's gone. He's in Galilee. He's gone, he's dead. Now you're on your own. Find him. So, and the creative poiesis, so I don't mean aesthetics. Creative poiesis is this making your way among the unknown, looking, where did he go? And then that should produce a proliferation, a multiplicity of interpretations of the image. And the notion that it would get institutionalized and canonized was a travesty. And that it would be contracted to some conceptual formulation. And then that conceptual formulation would become canonical. I think contradicts everything that he was trying to do and was trying to be done when we told them stories about it. So I don't think religion has to breed beliefs. Form of life. Form of life.
You go ahead, Colin. If you want to finish talking, you go ahead.
No, it's okay.
You sure? Okay, so maybe we'll throw it out to all of you now and people online. So I did see a hand back here, so you go ahead.
Been thinking to myself about
If you could stand so the camera can see you up here.
Gotta stand up when you're talking.
I've been thinking about the idea of moving beyond anthropocentrism. You've spoken about that, Mr. Rebidoux.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe something preceded anthropocentrism, maybe it was theocentrism. And I think of theocentrism as I guess maybe human beings understood themselves, or some people still think of themselves as being subservient to a god or to some divine power. And that god or that divine power is a center of value, a source of value, perhaps. Anthropocentrism, maybe we can characterize that as we are the center of value now. We are the ones. We are the generators of value. We're not relying on some other non-human divine source of value anymore. We decide what's valuable and what's not. And so we're not subservience. If we're anthropocentric, we're not subservience in that way anymore. If we move beyond anthropocentrism, I guess I wonder, would we have to be subservient to something once again? would we have to understand ourselves as being, under the yoke of a source of value, or subservient to a source of value that is not of our making, that we can call it the sacred or something else perhaps? Could AI, could we conceivably become subservient to artificial intelligence in that way? I have a hard time imagining human beings willingly accepting that. I would imagine a struggle against that. If we come to recognize that this creation of ours is capable of making us subservient, I imagine maybe many people would not be okay with that. So it would be different than theocentrism, because I guess when I think of theocentrism, I think of, human beings understanding themselves as being subservient to a force that is really beyond their control. They cannot overcome it. But yeah, I'm curious, how might we articulate this new state of being, this state way of living beyond anthropocentrism? Is it theocentrism or something else?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. What preceded theocentrism historically is some form of generalized pantheism, right? What the historians of religion call the nature religion, the natural religion, the religions of pre-classical times. At the axial age stuff, in the axial age, we acquired a sense of individuality and conscious rationality. Choreographers as the axial age. Prior to that, there was a sense of utter identification with the natural world. There was no anthropocentrism in that sense. There was a sense of the sun, the water, the lava rock, white and beautiful. Discourse with lava rock, the sacredness of lava. So you had that kind of natural identification. In the axial age, it became self-conscious. And so theism sprung up when God became the person of being, with whom we would have a personal relationship. And that's had a good run. That I think served a purpose for a long time, because it helped us formulate it. It was a powerful figure. It has been a powerful figure. Because I think what we're talking about is giving figure, imaginative figure, to our encounter with the mystery of faith. If you were to transcend anthropocentrism, what you would then have is maybe some kind of very high-tech repetition of the old nature religions. They would say, now you'd be back in contact with nature, the natural world, but now it would be the cosmos. And we would have acquired the wherewithal to explore the cosmos. That's where the whole idea of the cyborg came from. Cyborg was developed by the United States Air Force for outer space travel. So we would have a sense of a greater whole, belonging to a greater whole. But in any version of that, you wouldn't want to think of yourself as subservient to a divine power. You would understand yourself to belong to something greater and more powerful than we are. And we would have delimited our sense of being, so we are the image of God. It's a very anthropocentric thing to say. We are a remarkable part of an incomprehensible mystery, I would say. And I think that this post-humanist world, if it went well, we would have an enhanced value of that. That's what I would do. Anthropocentrism is destroying the planet, right? It's ruining everything. We're killing off species. We're poisoning the planet. We're disaster.
Well, within the environmental movement, of course, there's a push towards ecocentrism.
Yeah.
And even if So the idea is that we see ourselves within an ecosystem of the whole planet. And we're not really masters within that, and everything doesn't have instrumental value just based on our wishes. But we still might play a somewhat stewardship role within an ecocentric system. But that, I mean, you know, I think it is right that the technology that we have now, I mean, I personally would like to move back from some of those outer tools, like I said earlier. But the technology that we have now will bring us into a more cosmic dimension. So if we could extend the concept of ecosystem on Earth to a kind of
So
cosmic ecocentrism, if you I wouldn't know what word. Cosmocentrism, yeah, cosmocentrism. Right, but the thing about that is that, I mean, I think the whole sort of, you know, the play of theocentrism to anthropocentrism, and then, you know, not the desire not to return to another form of theocentrism, is the fear within the human that if I'm not the master, then I'm going to be mastered. And that seems to be the only thing that is understood, either a relationship where you're the master or you're a slave or a servant, right? And they're, you know, but ecocentrism doesn't have that concept of master and slave. Yeah.
I'm sorry. So aren't we either way some sort of slaves, even if we did not believe in one God, and we believe in the power of the cosmos? Doesn't having the cosmos having more power over us means that we are some sort of slaves to the cosmos, even if we feel like we belong to it?
I'm hearing Bob Dylan. You got to serve somebody.
I think, I do think that as humans, we are slaves to something.
Yeah.
So if it's not a God, it's something. We live to, and we have goals. And we do serve something or someone or some entity, whether it's divine entity or money or success or legacy. We are all slaves. So the delusion of being free, I think it's delusional to think we can be free, because as long as we are constrained, sorry, I lose my words. As long as we are in our physical bodies, we are still slaves to something. Even if it's not anything outside of our bodies, we're slaves to our bodies. We need to feed ourselves, go to the bathroom, sleep. So yeah, I don't know if that made any sense.
Yeah, and I agree.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I wasn't suggesting that we have to be free either, because even the sort of the tension between you're either a slave or you're free,
Yeah,
it's the same structure. It's either this or that, right? I mean, you know, I'm
so sorry. I did not
No.
in any way mean that you are delusional or meant that.
If I may put it this way, I mean, I'm bringing in all kinds of weird ideas today.
This is the day for weird ideas.
You know, like for example, Martin Luther King Jr. and Gandhi, you know, they and Thich Nhat Hanh, like they all sort of taught the idea that that power should not be based in a zero-sum model of power, which is basically the idea that there's only so much power to go around, a finite amount of power, and whatever you have, you took from somebody else. And you have to guard that jealously, because otherwise somebody's going to come and take it away from you. And even if you have 99% of the power, still, it's safer for you if you get the other 1% too, because otherwise someone's going to come and take it away from you, right? But their understanding of power is based in love. And I think it was Darlene that said, you know, brought in the idea of love. That love is not, I mean, the English word love is so poor. It's so poor, right? But love is, it's an ontology unto itself. I mean, it's a spiritual reality,
Yeah.
Which is infinite in power. And the whole idea of Martin Luther King Jr.'s teaching and Gandhi's teaching and Thich Nhat Hanh, and there are others, is that, you know, love power, I know it sounds flaky, but it's true. Love power is not based in a zero-sum model of power. So there's no dialectic between master and slave there. There's no dialectic between either slavery or freedom, right? It's, and you can't have true ecocentrism, and I would say true cosmocentrism, unless you lose the zero-sum model of power.
Can we do that?
I don't know, we could try, but I don't think we're very good at it yet.
There's a good quote from Alex online, and ties into what the last things Jack was saying. Perhaps we are made in the image of the cosmos and provoked to ask what that means.
Yeah, that's right. You know, looking at this discussion, I'm reminded of something that Paul Tillich, the analysis Tillich made.
I knew you were going to say Tillich.
Did you?
Well, I was going to say she sounded like Tillich.
Tillich was analyzing this question of autonomy and heteronomy. And he said, autonomy is the modernist, enlightenment, rationalist illusion. And the solution to which is heteronomy, which is to recognize something outside of ourselves that has authority that we submit ourselves to. And he said, both of those are false. Both of them are one-sided distortions. And then he goes as a third possibility, and this the dialectic of philosophy, theory, what he called theonomy. Theonomy, not theocentrism or theism, because he was not a theist. He was a post-theist. So what does he mean by theonomy? He means having a sense of the God within, and then acting out of the grounds of the God within. Maybe. So that I'm not obeying an external deity, and I'm not acting with autonomy, with a false sense of autonomy, but I'm working out of the ground of God. So we said God is the ground of being, the ground of you and me, of the tables, of the trees, of the narrows, of the harbor, of the ocean, the sky. God is the ground of all of that. And then so that our action should be neither heteronomous nor or autonomous, but theonomous, out of the ground. And so that displaces the altos, displaces the altos without turning me into a slave to the heteros. And that I think is so we have a sense of belonging to the cosmos, and the cosmos is coming to presence in us. So Heidegger's figure of the there of being, something to it, actually. And it was also in the German idealist of the Geist, that here, for a moment, passing moment, on a mote of dust, a fleeting second, and trillions upon trillions upon trillions of years, it lights up. World lights up. And we have a sense of being that point at which something is in something of cosmic force and dimension and depth. It's happening. And I'm not doing it. It's getting itself done with me. This the great English romantic poet Shelley wrote one of his famous poems. It's called The Aeolian Harp. And he said, the poet, he was talking about the poet. He said, the poet is like a harp upon which the winds of the spirit blow. So what the poet's saying, it's the winds of the universe blowing through us and coming out in song. That's not autonomy, that's not heaven, that's not mass. And that's the sort of thing you go for.
That is amazing. And do you think we are capable as human beings to do that?
So what? Who cares if we're capable? That's what we're dreaming.
Hmm.
And that we work towards it,
And we do.
Yeah.
even if we fall down.
We do.
Yeah.
We're giving it a try.
We can wake up every morning and try.
Yeah,
You know, it's our choice as to how we are going to live our life that day that we wake up.
Yeah.
Right?
Before we move on from this, because I know Irving had a question.
That was a good question.
Going back to
Yeah.
your ball game analogy that you used just now, the opposition, Maxine online wants to know, who's the opposition? You said we were getting clean by the opposition.
Oh, the unleashed destructive power of the information technologies to undermine our trust in truth. The most fundamental assumption that we need is that when I open my mouth, you assume I'm trying to tell you the truth. If we lose that, we're finished. And the opposition is the information technologies which are taking that away. That's the opposition. So far, they've got 10 runs in the top of the first inning. We're just coming up to bat, and they got their best pitcher off. If you understand baseball, that's a bad situation.
Okay, so we're gonna go to Irving.
I've been listening to this all day, and
That's where
I think it's a good space that we are in here. Because we are asking lots of questions. And the word that has come up, the phrase that's come up many times is the image of God. And I think what we're trying to get at is to kind of ask, how did that phrase, because in order for me to say something to you, talk about what's going on in my mind or in my thoughts or life or whatever, I have to name it. Someone named what was going on, and over time it became image of God in English. But what I see we're getting at here, or we're asking almost, is going back beyond that. We're not made so much in the image of God as human beings, or when we became human beings, we were aware that this is amazing. That it's a tremendous mystery. But that's what we want to name. And that is what kind of gives me hope and confidence in what's happening in the church as pews are emptying and so on. Is that people are going back and asking what is really important. And I think it's like during the storm, it happened down in Florida again now, just after the last hurricane. They talked about how, because of all the houses and so on that were destroyed, how the people came out and helped one another. This is certainly a really come home to us in the play Come From Away. That's all based on what we are about and what that's who we are, kind of thing. But it's all that is there. And we recognize that for some reason, from the very beginning, we learned that, or maybe we could have learned it. Maybe it's not there at all. We're just learning it. But out of that came the words that are not much fun anymore once they're written down and made into images and so on.
So is there a question in there?
Yes, that's what we're trying to get at, to go beyond the words that we think gives us meaning. And it is something that does, even for people today who in the church, who left the church, given up on it. I think of, all the people put up their lights at Christmas. Okay? All the people put up their lights. They haven't got a clue what it's about, really. They're just celebrating, getting up on the ladders, risking their lives, putting up all the lights. They won't turn up in church. They don't know the story of Jesus, or they don't teach their children how to pray, the things that kind of I grew up with that. But, there's still something there. As human beings that we enjoy this.
Yeah,
And that gives me hope.
there's an Italian philosopher, embodiment. She said, it's great. It's good stuff. People don't know the story, because the story's myth, but the story translates into Christmas time, fellowship, meals, family, good gifts. That's the meaning of Christmas. And the theology of the incarnation behind it is for seminarians to understand, so they can get the real translation of it is into this form of life, which brings fellowship. So he said, Christianity, his theory is Christianity is just sort of dissolving into a world of good fellowship and good citizenship and peace and justice.
Maybe
And
it's
of
love.
course, that was his point. So goodbye, Christianity. Now we've got what the point was. And the point is putting up your lights at Christmas time and inviting the family over and arguing about politics.
After all, that was most important anyway.
Well, it's like.
Yeah, I mean, it's good. Rob, what Rob says,
Yeah.
show me a religion, I'll show you a meal.
Right? Same.
It's Christmas meal.
And you're certainly right, once we put words to it, we miss the point.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, our job is to put words for all you see.
Yeah,
to do that.
Unless you're prose words.
Yes,
Yeah, the words are poetic.
yeah.
Yeah, we
Better
didn't
to write and make a painting.
if we didn't have the words, we'd still be swaying. The words bring us to a whole new world. Intelligibility.
The problem is when we think to define.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
I think that's probably not gonna ask religion.
Nice.
You know, so Imago Dei is a very important word
Yeah.
for certain groups of a certain Christian communities, and it's something they want to talk about within the broader horizon, but it's a meaningless phrase to many people now. So the question is, in what way can new poetry, because I think it's a poetic, because, you know, we suddenly lapse into Latin to make a point. Well, why do we do that? Well, we don't really, I mean, you know, we invoke Latin at the strategic moment. So we give up our own language and invoke this ancient phrase, which can only be poetry to us because I know we know what it translates as, but it's not our everyday vernacular. So the task, I think, is to find the poetic language that addresses in both the felt needs, longings, and desires of a world shaped by the new digitalities.
I remember this one.
But
Online, McKinley and Ordinary, one of them. They disagree with something. I'm not sure what they disagree with. I don't know if they want to turn on their camera and microphone and tell us what it is they disagree with.
The comment that Christianity's done its job and should go away, and that and that Christmas is just about fellowship. I totally disagree, and I think the whole issue here is that Christianity is not in everyday life, because the main message in Christianity is to love one another and not only think about yourself and what you think is putting yourself out there as the one who knows everything. And even all of us should be careful of that, because I could come off as that I believe what I believe, and I might come off as this is the truth, but my truth and your truth and whoever else's truth is different. But if we come together and share like what we're doing here, we'll grow. But at the same time, I think the message of Christianity and Christ will unify us. And all these things that's going on in the world, bit by bit, can change because so I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say, Darlene, as long as you understand that Jack was quoting someone else, that was valuable.
It wasn't Italian though.
It wasn't Italian.
Darlene, I was, and so I'm backing this, at our synod in this spring, I was quite impressed, and I was talking to Robert and I told several people, the people were doing their studies around the tables, reporting back. Several people, more than one, talked about, when they were reporting back and they talked with the church, they would stop and say, I mean, the people gathered, not the institution. People, and I think, sort of to me, what Irving's getting at, but it is about us being church, being people, being the body, it's us being it, rather than us belonging to an institution and conforming to a finite. So that's why I think like putting up the lights, even if you don't formally say that this is who you are, somehow light overwhelms darkness.
Yeah.
Right? And you know that's important to welcome people into your table. And you are living it. In living it, is more important than speaking it or writing it or arguing about it. Maybe that's just how I keep peace with my family.
Okay, well, it's like, I have so many in the Anglican church that clergy were against putting up a Christmas tree too early because it was Advent, okay?
Yes, gotta have Advent.
And yet all the people who weren't coming to church had their lights up since October.
I put up my tree in November.
So who's missing the boat?
Well, Allison
Okay.
has got her in. So we'll go to Allison online, and then if we have time, because we're getting short of it. Go ahead, Allison.
Yeah, I was just gonna say a couple of things. One to, I guess it was Darlene, and sort of adjacent to what Joanne was saying, like, I absolutely agree with you. The message of Christianity is love, and as Rob has said, hospitality, and it's community, and it's gathering. But I also don't think that belongs solely to Christianity. I think it. Sorry?
Right.
Yeah, you're right. It doesn't just belong to Christianity.
Yeah, it belongs to humanity. It belongs to a human community that includes Christians, but is also not limited to Christians. And so, like, I'm not disagreeing with anything you're saying, but I also think in some sense, and I say this totally respectfully, you've almost misunderstood what Irving was saying.
I caught that as soon as I finished, Allison. I went, dang, that's not exactly what I meant. Yes.
Yeah. And I was also going to say, I can't remember your name, the psychology student. We had a really good conversation at lunch.
Maya.
Yes. Maya?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Like, as a comment to your question about, like, are we not always a master or a slave? And so I think, and I put this in the comments, but I don't think you can see, like, I think the master-slave relationship has a very negative connotation, but I actually think there can be a lot of freedom found in the master-slave relationship in whatever context it's used, right? If you have a guru-student relationship, that's a form of a master-slave relationship, right? But it's also the case that that's not necessarily true for some or everyone. And adjacent, it's not, I'm not saying exactly what Michelle was saying, but I'm saying something similar in the sense that I think there's a way that we can recognize something grander in awe and wonder and have an inseparable relationship with it and yet still sustain our own autonomy.
Absolutely. I have is it okay to respond? I absolutely agree with you. So what I meant by slave master relationship, it's that we all conform to something. We are conforming to social context right now. I would rather be in my pajamas, but I'm not, because we are conforming to a social context right here. I'm conforming to not driving my car in the road right now because I don't have my driver license yet. So I am still conforming to social institutions and government institutions, and even unseen or unspoken rules, right? So instead of letting society choose what kind of things I have to conform with in order to belong, I choose what to conform with in order to belong. Instead of conforming with something that the mortal has created, I choose to conform with something I believe is immortal. Another question, and I don't want an answer for that, but I always wonder, how long can we immerse ourselves into the material world before we get fucked up? Living without a sense of a bigger thing, emerging, living for now and here, and that's it. And I always think about how long would it take someone who's living like that to get psychologically fucked up. And I'm so sorry for saying
I've been doing it now for about 10 years.
I won't say I'm not.
Pardon?
I was gonna say somewhere around the 1990s, I think.
I'm not saying to conform into like a specific religion. I'm saying to live a life without a sense of something bigger.
Yeah, that's what I was.
And I always ask myself that.
I don't think people do.
They just call something.
Well, Western people particularly probably don't, because they live with dreams and they have the illusion perhaps that those dreams can be realized, but I'm not sure that and I think this is part of the problem that religion often has in its perception of the world, that because someone disengages perhaps from an identifiable otherness or extension, that they therefore reduced their horizon. I think it just gets directed in different ways.
I can't, going back to your lights, and I'm gonna also.
Pull it out, Jim.
You got this.
No, I mean,
not go towards the light.
no.
The light is not over here. You're looking at me, Michelle.
I can't remember whether it was in your book or another book that I read, but somewhere in one
It was good. It was.
in one of the books I used for my theology of pop culture. I don't think it was your book. It was another book, but anyway, the author was saying, and this is really fascinating.
Unless it's good.
He said that in our secular world today, where so many people, are not following any religion or have no sense of, a transcendent God or transcendent power, there's still almost an innate longing within us for something that we might call transcendence. And people go to rock concerts because they feel some kind of like taken out of themselves, or sporting events. I mean, the whole field of religion and pop culture deals with looking at sporting events as religious, and patriotism as religious, etc. Right? But one of the things that was said was that probably the most frequent experience of secular transcendence is the simple experience of beauty And I think the light, you know, the fact that everybody loves to put up Christmas lights because they're beautiful. Who cares what they represent, sort of thing. People experience beauty, or even just going out into nature. Everybody says, "Oh, how beautiful that was," you know. So I mean, but so it's like there's a continued desire for transcendence, but people are looking for it in different ways if they no longer have any experience of a God or divine, you know, whatever.
I think transcendence has moved from here to here. And I've heard Barry talk too before, but it's like at the surface, right? Like, so it's not going, but it's, you know, connections at the surface.
And open up a depth within.
Isn't that what Barry
To
said?
Barry, the surface is the depth.
Now that I just.
That's another comment.
Now, our time is just about done, so Jack, I don't know if you wanna tie all this in a nice bow.
No pressure.
Give us something that's tweetable. Bring this all to you.
Well, no, it's like asking me about David Chalmers at the point at which I'm well, I mean, you've got a sense of search, of openness, of mystery, of crisis, transition to something scary, and we're trying to come to grips with that, trying to deal with it, and we're worrying about how well religion will stand up to it, because religion doesn't do well with change. I was raised Catholic, and so in my tradition, we take 200-300 years or so to acknowledge a mistake. We just got left Galileo off the hook 4 years ago. So religion does not have a great track record. It does not inspire confidence dealing with this kind of transition. And in fact, it's becoming reactionary. It's concentrating itself among rural, undereducated, resentful people who are destroying the name of religion, and they're shaming Christianity and God out of existence. And so our question is how to deal with this transition, this mystery, this crisis, and still find some worth in religion and some resource in religion. And I think we're all in that agenda, despite any differences in lots of different beliefs, but there's that kind of faith. And better hope that our faith is right, because it holds up. God is a placeholder for the future. The question is whether God's going to hold up, and the place will hold, whether the end is upon us.
I got a tweet from one saying, "You're leaving Christianity out of existence."
I have to read Alex's point up here simply because of one word that's contained. It is important to differentiate between the phenomenological experience we have called transcendence and the ontological characteristic of transcendence that we may falsely attribute to things. Perhaps transcendence is a word we use for the experience of intimacy in relationship to alterity.
Sure.
That's a lot to unpack.
It's no powerful sentence.
Thank you, Alex. That's a good point to end on.
Yeah.
Again, thank you all so much for being a part of this symposium along with us. Special thanks to Jack for being with us and sharing with us. Thanks to Barry for coming all the way from London to be with us as well. and all of you for sharing in these couple of days of learning and relationship and hospitality. Thank you all so much. And let's do it again soon sometime.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, please.
And someone else organize it.
And thank you for dreaming it.
Yeah. Thank you, Rob.
Go in peace, love and serve the cosmos.
Thanks to the cosmos.
World without why, amen.
Yeah.